Most people see the final social media design, but they never really see the process that goes behind it. In this video, I'm going to take you through exactly how I create social media designs. I'm going to take you through how I think the layouts all the way to the final design. So without further ado, let's get into the video. One thing you really need to understand about social media designs is that it's all about grabbing people's attention. If you are not able to grab people's attention with your design, you are not going to create any kind of impact with that design. So we are going to get into Photoshop here, and I'll just take you through the process, how I usually come up with designs in Photoshop. Number one, you need to identify whoever you are designing for. So you start with that kind of research. So you do research about who and what you are designing for. That is going to guide how you are going to approach that design, even without opening your software or your design tool that you are coming to use for the design. And so now, after doing your research, then you need to identify the resources that you are going to use in order to communicate that. Now let's jump into Photoshop, and I'll take you through how I usually do this. So first of all, we create a new document here. So I'm just going to click on new file, and I'll create a new file or a design workspace. I'm just going to create a 1080 by 1350 and then resolution 300. Now we have our workspace that we are coming to work with. So here we have a blank space, and now I'm going to be using this image right here. So I'm basically going to be using this image right here to create our design, and you have to keep in mind that we are doing it to grab people's attention. So number one, we've identified whatever we are designing for. So we are trying to get people to buy the iPhone 17 Pro. That is our goal of the design. So whatever you are going to do as a designer, you need to make sure that you make this stand out enough that it can grab somebody's attention. Number two is that I look for inspiration, and my primary place to look for inspiration is usually Pinterest. So I'm going to go to Pinterest, and I'll just look for inspiration here. So in Pinterest, I'm just going to type the iPhone 17 there, and so I'll just type iPhone 17 Pro design. So I'll just look at a bunch of other designs that are available over there, so that this is going to guide you how you're going to approach your design, and also make it stand out, because there are a lot here that you can take from. So we are just taking little bits of the designs that we are seeing. So as I'm looking at this, I'm looking at the designs, and I'm just noticing a few stuff, the color that they use, the composition, the fonts and stuff like that. So that is what you need to be on the lookout for whenever you are looking for inspiration. Now that we've looked for inspiration and we are clear about whatever we are designing, it's time to go back to Photoshop. And this is usually a back and forth thing with me. Whenever I'm creating designs, I go in between Pinterest and Photoshop just to get fresh ideas in order to continue my design. So here we have our image right here, and that is going to be our main image that we are going to use on the design. So anytime you see the design, this is what you are going to see first, and we are really going to work on this picture and make it look very good and very eye-catching. Like I said in the first place, we have to make it look very eye-catching. So I'm just going to increase the size of it a bit, and I'm going to start with a background here. So to create the background, I'm just going to create a solid color first, and I'm going to just sample a color from this side for now. So I'll sample maybe this orange part of it. So I'll sample that color right here, and what I'll do is I'll add a new layer, and then with my brush tool, I'll sample a lighter part of that picture right here. So like I've done here, press Alt on your keyboard, and then just sample, click and drag to sample the color over here. So I'm going to sample this one, and I'm going to hide this a bit, and then what I'm going to do is with my brush tool, I'm just going to use it to create a gradient effect on the background. So I'm just going to click and drag to create something like this. Now we bring our image back right here. Now what I'll need to do is I need to make the lower part here a bit dark. So what I'll do now is I'll sample my colors again. So I'll take this darker side of the picture, and then I'm just going to darken that aspect right here, like I've done. Very simple. So notice that I'm doing it on different layers so that I'll have enough control to move things around in the background. But for now, this is what we have. So I'm just going to place the image right here. And now the next thing that we need to do is bring in some elements that is going to spice up the background for us. So now we can go back to Pinterest again, and I'm just going to search for backgrounds. So iPhone backgrounds, and it's really going to give us a bunch of stuff that we can use. When I look at this is nice. So you click on it and you find other stuff in there. So I'm just going to click on this too. Then what I'll do is I'll right click on it and I'll copy the image. I'll take it into Photoshop and then I'll just paste it on there. So we are going to have something like this. Now you might be worried that the quality is not good enough because we just copied it from Pinterest. It's a social media design that we are doing, so it doesn't really matter. And also it's going into the background and we're also blurring it, so it doesn't really matter whether the picture is really good enough or the quality is good enough. We are blurring the picture anyway, but we just need to add some depth in the background. So I'll take it to the background and then I'll change the blending mode from normal to soft light. So we now have something like this. And now the next thing I'll do is add a layer mask, and then I'm just going to delete this aspect or max out this part that I don't really need. And now what we can do is click on our layer here, and then we'll go to filter, we'll go to blur, and then we are just going to blur it out a bit, not too much, but we're just going to blur it out a bit, just like this right here. I'm going to move my iPhone picture down here. Maybe I'll move it down here and then I'll make it a lot bigger, just like something like this. And now the next thing that we can do is bring in our text, and then we are going to really bring out this design, and we are going to really make it look very, very nice. So I'm going to add my text right here. So what I'll do is I'll go and select my text tool, which is the T. You can press T on your keyboard, which is the text tool, and then I'm just going to type the name of the iPhone that we are trying to sell. So I'm just going to type the iPhone 17 Pro. If you are designing for a recognized brand and they already have the specific fonts that they use, try as much as possible to use those same fonts. It's really going to make things look very organized and also keep it consistent across all media. So I'm just going to select this bold SF Pro display, and then I'm going to type the name of our iPhone. So I'm going to type the 17 Pro. Let's make it all capitals, so something like this. And I'll make sure that I bring my tracking down to -60, and then once I'm good with that, I can go back to my move tool again, and I'll just change the color from green to white for now. Now we have our text right here. We can add a bunch of text to make this really, really pop out. So I'm just going to say so you can say get the best, and I'm going to reduce the size of my text right here. So I'll say get the best iPhone here. So this means that we are trying to advertise the phone that we are selling right here. So I'm just going to maybe add my text here. So get the best iPhone here in Ghana. So let's say, for example, this is just an example, but let's say this is what we have. We are going to arrange them just like how I am arranging them. So I'll make sure that everything is in the middle, and then I'll place it right here. So I'll make sure that this is a lot bigger so that it's really clear, so that people are able to see it very well, and we are able to also establish hierarchy in our design. So I'll bring this down here a bit, and what I'll do is I'll now add our price. So I'll say starting at. So I'm going to type starting at, and then I'm now going to change my font to SF Pro display again. And what I'll do is I'm going to zoom in for a bit, and then I'm just going to reduce the starting out, And then what I'll do is I'll now add the price, which we can say 20k or 20,000 Ghana cedis. And then we can increase, since it's the price, we can now increase it something like this. And also just try to put it together by reducing the tracking a bit. So here I'll leave it at -60. So let's say this is our design. This is good enough. I mean, we are able to communicate whatever we want to communicate right here. So you can stop here, but what we are trying to do is grab people's attention as social media designers. We are trying to grab people's attention, so you cannot stop here. You have to make sure that it is attention grabbing. You have to make sure that the important things stand out in your design. So now I'm just going to add a few kind of effects that I think would beautify the design, or it will make it look very nice. So first of all, I'm going to take the 17 Pro, and then I'm just going to increase the size of that, and I'm going to center it right here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a layer, and then I'll clip mask that layer by right clicking and then clicking on you right click on the layer and then click on create clipping mask, or you can press Alt and click in between those layers. And now I'm going to sample this color right here so that we can paint in that new layer that we just created. So I'll press Alt on my keyboard and I'll sample this right here, and then I'll just paint in the text just like what I've done right here. Now we can see that it's really hiding some parts of the text. What we are going to do is we are going to add a stroke so that we'll bring back some of the details right here. So I'm going to just take down my color a bit, and then I'll double click on the text layer. I'm going to double click on the text layer just like what I'm doing here. And then we are going to come to stroke. So I'm going to click on stroke right here, and in the stroke usually it's on color. So what I usually do is I take it from color to gradient, and in here I can really have control over what I see or what appears on my text. So in the gradient editor I choose black and white, but then I'll make the black aspect transparent. So I'll click on this dial right here. It's going to bring my opacity up, and then I can reduce the opacity. Now I'm left with only white, and now I can really dial in whatever I want. And one interesting thing about adding this gradient is that you can really just click outside of this and then drag to see what your gradient is actually doing on your design. So I'm going to click on reverse because I want it to come from this other side of it, and then I'm going to adjust the angle a bit. And then what I'll do is I'll reduce the stroke size to about 1. And then we have something like this. So you see we brought back a bit of some details that we're losing around the bottom right here. So the next thing I'm going to do is add a slight shadow so that our text can just pop up a bit. So we don't add shadows like this. So when you add a shadow like this, it makes the design look very amateur. So shadows, when you are applying them, if you are doing it on a yellow background like this, try to make sure that you change your color from yellow and then take it towards the red, something like this, and then you can drag it down like this. So something like this, it looks more natural. But we don't stop here. You can increase the size of the shadow so that it will not just be there only. So you have to make sure that it is very subtle and not all in your face. So the next thing I'm going to do is also just reduce my opacity like this, and this is the before and this is after. You can see our text pops up a bit on the design. And now whenever you are looking at this design, whatever you are going to see here is going to be the 17 Pro, and that is how you can ensure that your design is also eye attention grabbing and eye catching. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm now going to take this text right here, and then what I'll do is I'm just going to increase the size of that a bit, and I'm going to go into my character panel and then maybe bring down the tracking to about -20. Then I'll make sure that it is centered right here. And now the next thing that we are going to tackle here is now take our pricing and really make it stand out, because that is what we want people to really buy. And I think I'm going to add Ghana cedis here, so I'll add Ghana cedis right here, and I'm going to center that right here, and then I'll put the starting at, maybe I'll put the starting out up there just like this. And then I'm going to make sure that I don't make this 17 Pro title and then the price fight with each other on the design. So you have to make sure that you establish another form of hierarchy here. This is what people will see, and the next thing is what people will see, based on how you arrange and how big your elements are on your design. So I'm just going to make sure it is centered right here, and with this, our design has been created, and we can still do more. So what we can do is, I'm just going to take this color that I painted on this 17 Pro. So I'm just going to duplicate that by pressing Ctrl+J, and then I'll bring that to the 20K just like this, and then I'll clip mask it to it. And then what I'll do is I'll now take it down like this. Then I can press Ctrl+T to actually adjust it and make it look something like this. Now I'm going to come back to my background and make sure that down here is a bit darker so that we can really see that part of the image. So I'm going to take this dark side that I created. So I'm just going to press Ctrl+T. Now I'm going to press Shift on my keyboard, and I'll click and drag, and then just raise this up a bit. So we are going to have some, really it's going to be separating the phone. This is going to make sure that we are able to read everything very well, because if you are using a white against a very light background, you are using white colors, readability issues usually creeps in, and we want to try and avoid that. So we are just going to make this down here a bit darker. And also you notice that when you do that, there is now a separation between your design here and the picture that you are using, and that is what we are trying to do. So I'm just going to make sure that my arrangement is good right here. Now going back to Pinterest again, I'm now just going to bring in some stuff to glow the design and make it pop very well. And I'm going to go back to Pinterest, and then so going back to Pinterest, I'm just going to try to find some images that I can use. So for example, this image right here, is pretty good and I can use it. So what I'll do is I'll right click, then I'll copy it, take it back in Photoshop, I'll paste it right here. And now what I need is this aspect of this picture, so I need only this aspect. So what I'll do is I'll press M on my keyboard, or I'll go to the top here, and then I'll right click and select the rectangular marquee tool. So I'm just going to select the part that I need right here, and then I'll press Ctrl+J to duplicate that. Then I'll hide this layer, and then I'll be left with this right here. Now I really need this highlights, or this kind of light part of it, and then this part right here, the darker side, I just need it to be dark. So what I'll do is I'll press Ctrl+L on my keyboard to bring up my levels. Or you can go to image and then adjustments. So you go to image, go to adjustments, and then you click on levels. So now in levels, I'm just going to bring in my shadows more, and then I'm just going to make sure that my highlights pop just like what I've done here. And now we can change this from normal to screen, and when you do that, it's going to hide the black aspect of the pictures. So it's going to hide all the blacks and leave all the whites. Now I can really take this and then use it on my design. So what I'll do is I'm going to flip it by pressing Ctrl+T, and so when you are in the transform mode, you are able to right click and then flip it vertical just like I've done here. And then I'm just going to make it wide a bit and kind of make it, fit into the curvature of this phone right here. So I'm just going to make sure that it is placed right here. Then I'll bring it below my image, something like this. I'm just going to make it a bit bigger, and I'll widen it up a bit again. Notice that when I'm widening it, I'll press Shift on my keyboard. So you press and hold Shift in order to control just one aspect of it. If you're not pressing Shift, you are going to be controlling the rest of the image, and that is not what we want to do. So I'll press Shift, and then I'll just do something like this. And then one interesting about this thing is that you can max out the parts that you don't need. For example, these corners, I'm just going to add a layer mask, and then what I'll do is I'm just going to max out these parts that I really don't need. So I'm just going to max out this part right here, and then I'll just leave the parts that I like. So now we have this image right here. I can actually click and drag to edit the parts that I really want. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to duplicate that same image, and then I'm going to bring it on top of this right here. And then from here, I can now increase the size of that, and then I'm just going to place it somewhere around here. And the next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to blur it a bit. So I'm just going to blur it a bit, just like here, and then I'll do the same. So I'll come to filter, and then I'll just click on blur. It's going to blur that aspect for me. And now what we can do is I'm just going to bring this back again, and I'm going to change it from normal to screen. So now we have the whole thing on our screen, and I really want this aspect of it to really capture the 17 Pro. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to really shrink it down like this. I'll add a layer mask here, and then I'll just max out the parts that I do not need on the design. So I'm just going to use my brush tool, and make sure your opacity and your flow is at 100, and I'm just going to use my brush tool to max out this part right here. You can click on the layer here so that it will move from this side to this, and I'm just going to press Ctrl+L and really bring in my shadows and highlights right here. I think this might be a bit much, so what I'll do is I'll flip it vertical and see how it looks. Okay, so I'll maintain this horizontal look, but what I'll do is I'm just going to max out this part, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that layer, and then I'll flip it horizontally, then I'll bring this right here, and now I'm just going to max out this part that I do not really need. So I'm maxing out this part again, and then in this picture right here, I'll max out this part that I don't need. So it's going to kind of like enclose it in that box that we have right here. So something like this. So you can see we've just used just 2 images we've got from Pinterest, and now our 17 Pro is really glowing now. But our starting at, or the price that we want people to buy it at, is really affected by what we've done. So I'm just going to move this to the top. So I'm just going to move this up a bit to somewhere here, and then maybe reduce the size of that. So you can see what we've established here. Actually, I'm just going to get rid of this right here. Then I'll bring the phone down a bit. So now you can really see we have the 17 Pro popping in the background, and that is going to be the first thing that you see when you look at the design. Now, just to add final touches to the design, I'm going to do what I usually do at the end of every design, which is adding glows. So I'm just going to add a new layer here, and glows is all about sampling colors from different places and just brightening that side up. So I'm just going to change my normal, the blending mode from normal to screen, and then I'll have something like this. So when I click here, you're going to see that it's really making it pop. So it's going to add a bit of glow around the design. And what you need to know about the glows is that if you sample a color from here, you make sure that you put that color right there. If I come to this side and I sample a color, or I want to add another glow there, I'll sample a color from that side of the design. So I'm just going to sample the color right here by pressing Alt on my keyboard, and then you see this eyedrop button, and then you're just going to click and drag. And then once you do that, you're going to have something like this, and then I'm just going to sample this part. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just maybe darken this part a bit on the iPhone so that it really comes into the design. So I'm just going to bring this down here, then press Shift and Alt, and then click and drag it out just like this. So essentially what we are doing is trying to make this dark so that everything comes together in the design. And now the final things that I'm going to add is just a bunch of highlights of rectangles that I usually add at the end of my designs. So I'm just going to click and then make it white. And then what I'll do is I'll add a layer mask. I'll take my gradient tool by pressing G on my keyboard, and then I'll just click and drag multiple times to erase the half part of it. And then what I'll now do is rasterize this layer. After rasterizing the layer, what you can do is press Ctrl+T, press Shift on your keyboard, and then you rotate it to about 45 degrees, just like this right here. Then I'm just going to place one here. I'll press Alt and then drag it out to duplicate it, and then I'll just going to duplicate another part right here. Then I'll group them together, and then I'll now just reduce the opacity to about 8 or 9, and then I'll add a layer mask finally, and then I'm just going to max out the parts that I don't really need. So we have something like this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to increase the sharpness of the image that I'm using, which is the phone. So I'm taking it into Camera Raw, and I'm just going to add some sharpness to that right here. So I'm just going to take it into Camera Raw and add a bit of sharpness right here. So I'm just going to add some sharpening to it, and I'm going to increase the highlights on that, and then increase the contrast, then maybe bring down the blacks. We have before and after, just with a few adjustments, and this is what we are able to get. So just a little adjustment here and there, we're able to create this. Now usually after I'm done with the design, I'll create a stamp layer by pressing Ctrl Shift Alt and then E on my keyboard. So it will create a stamp layer for me right here. Then what I'll do is I'll now take it back to Camera Raw filter again. So I'll go to Camera Raw filter. So I'm just going to add a bit of sharpness so that when I post this on social media, the design is actually very sharp and it doesn't really lose the quality. So I'll add the sharpness right here, and that's it. And now we have been able to create a design, and this is really how I go about creating social media designs. When you are starting, you start with the mindset that you want to grab people's attention, and that's where you start from. And this is how we are able to create a design just like this in Photoshop, using just a few images that we found online and just a single picture. We are able to create this right here. So yeah, I want to know what you guys think. So if you have any thoughts or any contribution or any questions, leave that in the comment section. And if this video also helped you in any way, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Let's keep creating. Peace.